Hey there, podcast listeners. You've tuned in for a great episode of JJ Meets World. Our special guest is Rachel Geinert. We talk about history and theater and anything you could imagine because that's what podcasts are for. Tucker and I also talk about if you had TBS as a kid, you're going to know the movie that we reference right off the bat. I won't say any more than that. It's called A Tease, folks. So sit back, relax, and listen to this episode of JJ Meets World.
1, 2, 3, 4. J.J. Gordon, sort of like that Indiana Jones, in that he's always sniffing out his next adventure. Yes, he is! He's always interviewing guests so he can have them on his show and they can talk about pop culture, arts, and leisure. J.J. has his flag unfurled and he likes his french fries curled, and he's fun and then he twirls as he goes to meet the world. He will march into the rain even if his ankle's sprained. Take a peek inside his brain. This podcast is called JJ Meets World.
Winslow Lowry, the no-good, indebted nephew of elderly, infirm billionaire Albert Dennison, seeks to speed his uncle's demise by hiring 3 of the most inept orderlies he can possibly find. The trio, Marky, Buffy, and Cool, only mean well. However, their good-natured antics actually help re-energize the ailing Albert. They find out about Winslow's scheme and try to stop it from taking place. The 1987 comedy Disorderlies, starring the rap group The Fat Boys and Ralph Bellamy. So let me tell you something. This movie was released August 14th, 1987. It's, at the time of this recording, almost 31 years old. Runtime of 86 minutes, under 90. I watched this movie probably 200 times in my childhood because it was a TBS film.
That's why I thought was it a made-for-TV movie?
No, it was theatrically released. This is a theatrical vehicle for the Fat Boys, and you might remember Ralph Bellamy from movies like Trading Places. He was the quintessential old man in the 80s, and I don't think his nephew was just a smarmy redheaded guy, but I love the movie. The Disorderlies. There's a sequence that takes place in a roller rink. And I remember they had a live singer at the roller rink, and she sang the song. It was like, "Work me down, down, work me down, down. Come on, everybody, and work me down." But then the Fat Boys also find a video camera at one point and make a rap music video.
Do they refer to themselves as the Fat Boys?
Not in this, but in other things they refer to themselves.
Other media. They're a cross-media platform of the Fat Boys.
Yeah. You know, in addition to the score co-composed by Ann Dudley from The Art of Noise, the soundtrack features the Fat Boys performing a cover version of the Beatles' Baby You're a Rich Man, as well as other rap, pop, and rock tracks. The soundtrack was last issued in 1995 and has since gone out of print, which means I own an out-of-print soundtrack. I own a CD copy of this. Baby You're a Rich Man, I Heard a Rumor by Bananarama, Disorderly Conduct, Latin Rascals, Big Money by Cash with a $ flow, Don't Treat Me Like This, Anita, The Edge of a Broken Heart, Bon Jovi, Trying to Dance, Tom Kimmel, Roller One, Art of Noise, Fat Off My Back, Gwen Guthrie, and Work Me Down by Laura Hunter.
So I haven't seen this movie.
You're missing out.
So I know that I cannot fairly judge it.
Okay.
I will say, though, I think it's a really weird direction to take for a sequel to Jerry Lewis's The Disorderly Orderly. Like the fact that this is the follow-up film,
Sure.
and there's no connection to him, I'm assuming, in the
None
script.
whatsoever.
So, I mean, how were people supposed to bridge that gap? How are they supposed to understand that those two movies are in a shared universe?
Well, that's a good question because there are a lot of shared universes out there that people don't realize. To bring up Trading Places, not Trading Spaces, Trading Places with Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd is in the same universe as Coming to America with Eddie Murphy and Arsenio Hall.
Yeah, pretty much any TGIF show.
Oh, all in the same. My favorite days are when they would all the shows would go to Disney World or Las Vegas or something, and there'd be a special evening of entertainment. that shows you where all of these things are coming from. Oh, so sweet. I'd always look. I remember the Family Matters episode where they went to Disney World, and it looks weird, right? Because they're all naturally lit.
Yeah.
And so you're like, wow, why does Carl look so weird?
Suddenly they're outside.
Yep.
You could tell this was not shot on location.
It was shot on location.
Or I mean, it was shot on location, but not on the stage location.
Because Stephen Urkel they go to Disney World because Stephen Urkel is taking place in like a invention convention, and he uses his like switch machine and turns into Steve Urkel. Mm-hmm. I think that's what it was.
Well, no, he builds a robot.
No, but he's got that machine that turns him into a suave.
Oh, no, isn't that a potion that he drinks?
Is it a potion?
Because it's like a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde.
Yeah,
but so I think it's
reverse.
I think he came up with a compound that turns him into Urkel.
So, because I know that he had turned into that on the series previously. Anyway,
JJ, you and I right now, we need to go get in my van that I don't own yet.
Yeah.
We need to drive out to Hollywood, California right now.
Okay.
We need to go to the offices of one Mr. Steven Spielberg, and we need to tell him that the idea he's been waiting on this whole time
is a Family Matters movie.
Are that all of his historical pictures take place in the same cinematic universe. So Saving Private Ryan, Schindler's List, Amistad, they all take place in the same cinematic universe.
And they share commonality.
Yeah.
Lincoln.
Yeah.
Yeah. There might be legs to this.
There might be.
I'm surprised they haven't tried to just combine some things together that don't make sense. Like, say, the Goonies takes place in the same universe as Gremlins. So at one point, the Goonies have to fight the Gremlins.
Well, they were going to try to do that with 21 Jump Street and Men in Black.
I believe that's still happening.
Is that still happening?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah, because Sony at this point has nothing to lose. They're the raccoon who's been backed into the corner, okay? Nothing to lose.
But I mean, the idea that there have been failed shared universes too, like the Dark Universe that is shuttered. That was supposed to be all of the Hollywood movie monsters. So The Mummy with Tom Cruise was supposed to kickstart that off, and they had already cast all the other monsters.
Actually, that was originally started when they remade The Wolfman, and then they're like, you know what? Let's take this on another path.
Yeah, but they didn't have the idea for Dark Universe. Then.
Yeah, they did.
With
that was the beginning of it.
Benicio del Toro.
Yeah,
are you sure?
Oh, I'm positive because Universal has been trying to kickstart this thing for about 30 years, and that was when the Marvel movies were starting to take off, and so that was their original thought is they would get this big, and the Wolfman would be the big first one. That's why Anthony Hopkins signed on to it, which is good it went down because that opened up Anthony Hopkins to stay in the Thor series.
But that movie came out before Captain America came out because it's the same director.
Yep.
And are you sure they were trying to build a shared universe at that time?
I am positive because they were talking about that was also at the same time when vampire movies are starting to get big again, and so Dracula was supposed to be the second of that series, and then that went down the toilet. Fast.
Well, the Wolfman one with Benicio del Toro was god awful,
horrible,
and that's why I was really worried about Captain America: First Avenger. I was like, you hired the director for this piece of shit?
Yeah,
really?
But because it's Joe Johnston, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So
Rocketeer Joe Johnston,
right? Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. Joe Johnston. And he had made a whole series of just crap movies for a while. And so I agree that I was like, is this going to be any good? But then you're right. So they shelve the monster movies and then they bring it back because all of a sudden they're like, Tom Cruise is going to be in this Mummy movie. And we're going to get that gal from Kingsman that no one can pronounce her last name.
Is Tom going to play the Mummy? No. He's going to play Tom Cruise.
Oh.
But he'll fight the Mummy.
Wait, what? And then, so I never actually saw it. That's I see everything.
Yeah, yes, you do.
But people told me the Mummy was so bad consistently across the board that everyone said, don't even bother wasting your time.
That was one of those trailers. You watch the trailer and you go, did anyone ask for this movie?
Right.
I mean, and I felt like they were marketing that movie for almost 2 years before it came out.
Heavy marketing. So that doesn't take off. So that shelves that. We're also...
You've got the View Askew universe. The Kevin Smith movies all take place in the same universe.
Which I like.
Tarantino's movies, I think he said before, movies like Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction, they're all in the same world, but then in that world, movies come out like Django Unchained. Or Inglourious Bastards. So, Vincent Vega from Pulp Fiction
Could go see.
if he had stayed alive,
Spoiler alert.
he could go see one of those movies. I think that's pretty cool.
What's another good shared universe?
The Muppet movies.
But
I guess that's a franchise. That's
Yeah.
not the same thing.
Yeah.
That's not the same thing.
Well, actually, they do include Big Bird
That's
in
true.
the first Muppet movie.
So the Sesame Street characters and the Muppets characters,
Yeah.
but they're all Muppets.
How about this one? Did you ever see the Rugrats Wild Thornberries movie?
No.
It was good. The Rugrat movies had an ability to make me cry every single time.
What
They
about
played on my emotions?
what about Hanna-Barbera? The Jetsons meet the Flintstones.
That was a good one. They also had a series of Yogi Bear and the Spruce Moose, which was a Howard Hughes ripoff.
Nice.
Yeah. Maybe some things are just better left without trying to combine them into shoehorned universes.
Yeah.
But if you could come up with an ultimate, what would you like to see? So, for example, how about when Patton Oswalt in that episode of Parks and Recreation talks about the Quinjet flying in during Star Wars and then branching together with the Marvel universe and the Star Wars universe?
Well, I'm actually almost the wrong person to ask that question because my perfect shared universe has been made, or they brought it to fruition, which is the Marvel Cinematic Movies. Because when I was a kid, I started reading comic books in like 1989, and that's where I first had the idea of a shared universe, that there were all these superheroes that I knew that knew each other, and they would interact with each other in their own issues, and there'd be big world events where they all got together. That's when I first read Infinity War and Infinity Gauntlet was back then. And but I never, if you'd gone back and talked to any fan of those comics, even up to the year 2001, the idea, or 2008 when Iron Man came out, the idea that there would be a cross-franchise shared universe of superhero movies was just unheard of. It's like, that had never happened. Now it's all the rage.
I'd like a world where you figure out a way to combine John Candy movies, because John Hughes kind of already started it with Uncle Buck and then his character in Home Alone, which we've talked about at length, being the devil.
Oh, I thought you were going to say that there's actually some relation there.
No, there isn't. Other than the fact that Chicago is a pretty common thing between them. But I feel like he's already kind of priming the pump by having John Candy be the through line of all of these movies, including like The Great Outdoors, because Dan Aykroyd's character from The Great Outdoors goes on to cameo in another John Hughes movie. So,
well, do you think Lethal Weapon and Maverick are in the same shared universe?
They are. Well, duh, because at one point, Mel Gibson unmasks a guy who's robbing a bank he's in.
Yeah.
Turns out to be Danny Glover, and they look at each other like they know each other, but they don't know exactly what it is. And then Danny Glover gives his famous line from Lethal Weapon, "I'm getting too old for this shit."
But you see, that's because I in my theory is that they're not in the same shared universe. That Maverick is a movie you could watch in the Lethal Weapon universe, and that really what's happening is that there was like a summer where Briggs and Murtaugh actually got roles in a Richard Donner film.
Yeah. I remember listening to another podcast that Richard Donner was on, where he talked about how, I think it was Warner Brothers who made the Lethal Weapon movies, and how they told him, if you come in under budget, you can do whatever you want, because he had made them so much money with the Superman movie, right? And so he said it was one of the best directing projects he's ever had, because they just let him do whatever he wants. And even he noted that the last Lethal Weapon movie to come out, which was what, Lethal Weapon 4
with Jet Li.
Oh God, Jet Li and Chris Rock.
Yep.
He said those still use physical effects. It was still made at a time when you used physical effects and real explosions. And he said, I don't know what you would do today. I don't know how you'd make a Lethal Weapon movie today. Everything would be CG'd, and it wouldn't be nearly as fun.
There was a great gag on The Daily Show back when Jon Stewart was still the host. And it was around the time that Danny Glover was hanging out with Hugo Chavez for some reason and like being in the news about it. And Mel Gibson had just been arrested for another, being pulled over intoxicated and going on an anti-Semitic rant. And the joke was something like, what were the conversations like behind the scenes on Lethal Weapon?
Mm-hmm. That's unfortunate.
Good joke, though.
Yeah, it was a good joke.
It was a good joke when I heard it. You guys should have heard it. It was really good.
Yeah, a lot of people are probably having the same reaction I have, which is, I wish I would have heard it. Wish I would have been there.
We're starting a new podcast called, you guys, you should have seen this last night.
Who do you think is the best host of The Daily Show?
I mean, I'm a Jon Stewart guy.
Yeah.
But I don't dislike Trevor Noah. I love Trevor Noah, actually.
But there's someone even before Jon Stewart, right?
Craig Kilborn? I was really into Craig Kilborn on the Late Late Show. The Late Late Show with Craig Kilborn. I would stay up. There was a summer I'd stay up every night, watch the Late Late Show with Craig Kilborn, and then stay on through Jack Van Impe Presents, which would come on right after that. Which, by the way, is still happening. Did you ever watch that show? Jack Van Impe Presents?
I know of it.
Oh, that's another podcast. We'll get into that one. There's so much to say about Jack Van Impe.
Well, the idea of a shared universe actually brings me to our guest today, because our guest is a part of your universe, but also has fingers into my universe.
Which fingers?
So her older brother Joe was a part of Linebenders as the first Geinert I got to know.
Yeah, me too.
And she's been a part of your world through Theater B.
Yep.
And other little creative projects. And so Rachel Geinert is here with us today, and we're going to delve into a lot of different subject matters with her. You can count on theater being a part of that as well. And this conversation's a lot of fun. You're gonna be surprised where we end up on some of these tangents. And maybe we should just rename this podcast JJ Meets Tangent. Oh my God, look at that. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of JJ Meets World with our special guest, Rachel Geinert.
JJ Meets World.
Rachel, welcome to JJ Meets World, the classiest podcast currently being produced in this room.
Fantastic. Thank you for having me.
Rachel, tell me what your story is.
Okay.
And let me preface it with this. I've been to your house before.
I did not know that.
Yeah, we stopped there while we were on a Linebenders road trip, and
Yes.
we took corn.
Yes, I was not there, but I know that
corn.
happened. That sounds awful. So just so you know, my house is the kind of thing where it's the kind of place where it is not unexpected for me to get a text that says we have a rhubarb emergency. Please come home. So that's where,
Meaning that we need to pick all the rhubarb, or
so I grew up on my dad's family farm about a half an hour south of Jamestown. And we no longer farm it in the traditional sense. That gets rented out, but we still do market gardens. And we grow a shit ton of rhubarb. Somewhere in the ballpark of 200 or 300 plants.
whoa! I've got 4, and I yield enough rhubarb for an army.
We pick and sell to the various wineries in the area.
Oh.
We sold to 4E last year. They now have their own rhubarb, so they don't need ours. We've sold to Maple River in the past, but they got persnickety, and they only want red rhubarb. They don't want green rhubarb anymore.
I feel like a parsnip joke could have gone in there, or a parsnip pun, but it's not the right Geinert that we're sitting with for that kind of pun.
No, that would be Joe.
Yeah. Sorry to distract.
It's okay. And then this past year we sold to a place in Montana. And I did not make it home for this picking, but I have been told that they picked 1,500 pounds of rhubarb.
So if you ever been to like a grocery store and see how they sell rhubarb by the stalk for something like $3.99 a pound, I think to myself, this is the most overpriced commodity that is on the shelves of your fresh produce stand.
Oh, for sure. My dad has a plan. In his golden years, what he wants to do is he wants to turn what used to be his piano trailer into a refrigerated trailer, fill it with rhubarb, and then drive south where he can sell it for $7 a pound. because that trip would
pay for itself 10 times over.
Yes.
And because when you go out of the heartland, the upper Midwest, rhubarb gets to be hard to find. You get down to Arizona, and you would think that rhubarb would grow great in Arizona, but it does
It
not.
needs the cold weather.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Here are things I love about rhubarb. Number one, it is impossible to kill a rhubarb plant. I have transplanted them, and you dig down, and the rhubarb root itself looks kind of like a rutabaga once you pull it up. But you could chop that thing into 10 sections and get 10 plants out of it.
Yes.
Instantly.
That is what we do.
That's amazing.
So the core of our plants come from the Richardson Abbey. So it's holy rhubarb. My dad went there for some thing. There was a thing, and he went there. And he brought back several 5-gallon buckets full of rhubarb. Some with just stalks and some with plants. And we planted them in our garden, and we had 18 plants, and they got ridiculously overgrown. And so he took them up, broke them apart into smaller chunks, and planted our next 100 plants. And then that took us for a really long time, but then the rhubarb industry was booming and we need more rhubarb. And so then they took up all of the 18 plants and broke them apart, and that's where we got about 250 plants that have since been broken down because
I don't know if you guys made this. You probably didn't, because it sounds like you're rhubarb pros, but the first time I split my rhubarb, I planted them too close to each other, not knowing, rhubarb leaves become it's not unheard of to see a 2.5-3 foot long rhubarb leaf, depending on the stock variety, because as Rachel mentioned earlier, there's the green stalk, which I think tends to be a larger leaf because it's a thicker.
And it's a thicker stalk.
And then there's the spindly red ones.
Yeah, that typically are referred to colloquially as strawberry rhubarb. They're a sweeter variety than the green rhubarb, which is tartar.
So,
do you think when RuPaul was trying to decide what her stage name was going to be, rhubarb was on the short list of rejected?
So RuPaul is RuPaul's real name.
Oh, really?
Yeah, RuPaul Charles.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Things I know.
So when RuPaul's parents were gonna name her, do you think rhubarb was on the short list?
I really hope. That would make me so happy.
We refer to our rhubarb as rhubarbra because they were my grandmother's rhubarb plants.
Was she a barb?
Was Barb.
She was a barb.
Yeah, a barb.
Barb.
I did not
she make
expect
bars?
Your scalloped
rhubarb.
potatoes are fucked, Barb. Trailer Park Boys.
Did you ever see the movie In and Out with Kevin Kline? Where
No. Oh yes, I
where
did.
he's like a teacher in a small town,
Gets outed,
and he's outed, but he doesn't even realize that he's gay. And then all of a sudden he comes. Anyway, there's a part at the end where Debbie Reynolds plays his mom and Wilford Brimley plays his dad, and they're great. And there's a moment where he comes out during the wedding, and it's this emotional moment, and Debbie. I can't remember it all.
Reynolds?
Debbie Reynolds, thank you. Thank you. I just said it. Is devastated. She's sitting with the other church ladies, and they said, well, good for him. Good for him to be who he is. He goes, if we could all be a little more honest, this would be a better world. And one of the women goes, the bar recipe is not mine. They're Gladys Martin's bars. I've been lying. They're a dead woman's bars. And there's a shock of everyone. And then someone goes, my husband has 3 testicles. It's disgusting. It is just this great little moment that makes me think, like, no wonder the church basement ladies play is so successful. Is because everyone knows that group of women, right?
Oh, yeah.
Have we exhausted the rhubarb conversation? Oh, no, I want to tell you something that's going to blow your mind.
Yes, please do.
Okay, tell this to your dad, because I think this is the real $1 million idea.
Okay.
Here. So KitchenAid makes a chopping mechanism that's meant for feeding in like a zucchini or feeding in a cucumber to come up with slices, but it works great for rhubarb.
Okay, did not know
And
that.
they're not huge, because I hate chopping rhubarb, because when you harvest rhubarb, you end up with a shit ton of it, even from just a single plant.
Yep.
And having to chop that all, because we freeze by the cup size. So we freeze 3 cups, which is how much it takes to make our family's rhubarb pie recipe.
Ours takes 4.
Oh, son of a bitch. What size pie pan are you using there?
Usually an 8 or a 9 inch.
Well, we're using a 9. We need to up our game, apparently.
We like rhubarb. It's jam-packed.
Good for you. You adding strawberries to it?
No.
Yes. Rachel, you and I are best friends now. But anyway, so I've been feeding this thing in. You should tell your dad to pre-chop a bunch of that rhubarb and then charge double that amount.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, so you can buy the stalks or you can buy it pre-chopped, ready to go for a recipe.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
people are lazy.
Oh, yeah. Have you seen how much it costs to buy frozen rhubarb?
No, because I have never needed it. I've always had my own.
On the rare occasions when I have not been at home and needed rhubarb and was not within easy access of hundreds and hundreds of plants, I have purchased frozen rhubarb, and it is shockingly expensive. Like, it broke my heart. I was like, what is this? Why am I doing it?
I only buy onions when they're pre-chopped in a plastic container that's never going to break down.
Really?
Because fuck the earth.
Let me tell you something. That is courtesy of one of our previous guests' father.
I know, that's
Jason
how I found
Jacobson's
out it was a
dad,
thing.
Salad makers.
I know.
Shout out to salad makers.
I love your diced white onion, man. It's great.
Oh, see, I'm an onion trio kind of guy.
Oh, yeah, but see, that's like an extra $2, I think. And I'm only needing the one white onion. Like the onion trio is if you're entertaining.
Oh, see, and I will do other things pre-chopped. I don't get the pre-chopped onions. I will buy onions by the bag. If I have to buy onions, once again, we have onions on the farm. My mother planted 2,000 onion plants this year.
What kind of onions are you growing?
All kinds. They've got Vidalia. They've got some Walla Wallas.
Oh, those are my favorite onions. You can eat those like an apple.
Yeah, you can.
My grandma used to eat onions like apples. I think that was a Depression era thing.
Swedish candy.
Custer used to do that. It was one of his claims to fame. That is
Really?
how he died.
We should call this podcast Springboard. We just went from growing rhubarb to General Custard.
Yeah.
What was Custer's first name? Do you know?
General.
He's not the car from the Dukes of Hazzard.
That's the General Lee.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's George, right? Is it George Ulysses Custer, I think?
I literally have no idea.
I'm pretty sure
Mr.?
it's George Custer.
Probably.
Wouldn't it have been better if his
Raymond
name had been Custard?
It's probably.
Have they made a children's show where there's a General Custard?
It's probably Eugene Custer, and that's why he, massacred people. Because he was compensating for the name that his name was Eugene Custard.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
So, any other onion varieties? You only got to 2. And
I know we
interrupted
have
you.
a lot more, but I wasn't involved with the planting this year. I know that they have a new one that is a sweeter onion. I think it's a later variety because they plant so that there's multiple. They come up at different times.
That's smart.
Mm-hmm. They have high tunnels.
What are high tunnels?
High tunnels are similar to a greenhouse in that it gives you an elongated growing season, but it gives you the benefit of growing in your own soil. It is a metal structure that then has a double wall of plastic pulled over it. The plastic is then inflated. And so it functions like a greenhouse, but it's right over our garden. So they've trellised like cucumbers and melons. They've got peppers galore in there. They've got 2. They've got the small one, which is 35 by 35 feet.
Oh my God. Jeez.
And then they have the big one that's 70 by 35. Yeah.
So, going to the grocery store, you guys never even looked at the produce aisle. You're like, no,
Not in the
thanks.
summer. Not in the summer. It's the best thing. When I go, my mother will bribe us to come home for the summer because, like, it's never a vacation. If you go home to the farm for a weekend, you are going to work and you're going to work hard. But on the plus side, you get to go back to Fargo with giant containers full of vegetables.
You guys ever thought about doing like a CSA as
They
part
do.
of it? Oh,
They
there you
do.
go.
So my younger brother, Joshua, who goes to school at NDSU for ag, he started as an FFA project that went awry. And by awry, I mean it went really, really well and got out of control. He started what he calls Geinert Gardens. And that's where we got the grant for the first high tunnel. And then they started CSAs. And so that first year they did, I think, like 8 or 10 CSA boxes in Jamestown and Edgeley combined. And then it grew to the point where they were doing something like 20. And then my mom got really, really tired of it because now it's just her running the garden. And so now they're just doing like 4 or 6 or something like that.
How many kids are in your family?
There are 5 of us.
So all the kids are out of the house now?
Yes.
So that's got to be kind of tough for them, right? Like to have a small army and then...
Yes. So there are 5 of us. Joe is the only one outside of the state. He's in New York. Marie and Claire and I and Josh are all in Fargo. And Marie and Claire are both married. And so the first year the holiday season after Claire got married, I got so many phone calls from my mother making sure that I was going to be able to come home for Christmas. Like 3 or 4 times a day, I would get a phone call saying, but you're coming home for Christmas, right? It's going to work. You're going to be able to get that time off of work. Cause I know Claire and Marie are both spending the holidays with their other families, and it's just going to be really quiet here. You're coming home for Christmas, right? So,
I think empty nest is a real thing that like
much.
people deal with, and
My parents love it.
do they really? Oh, see,
I just nodded yes. I guess I should say
acknowledge
yes.
it.
I can't just
verbally.
nod yes when in an audio format.
It's one of those things where maybe here's a difference. Maybe here's a little bit of city mouse versus country mouse mentality to it. Is I think when you have a larger family and when you're living in an area like what I really loved about your farm is it's secluded,
it's out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, but it's not like you're hundreds of miles from the nearest town or anything like
30.
that. Yeah, so you had modern city conveniences available, but I bet you guys hung out a lot and you were each other's
I'm very
best friends.
close to my family. Yeah.
So Tucker is not very close to his siblings.
We don't speak.
Yeah, at all. But we don't need to get into that.
I just know that no one in my family listens to this podcast.
Me too.
In fact, most people in my circle just could give a fuck.
We had my sister's best friend as one of our guests, and you would think that'd be a thing. She's like, I listen about 5 minutes. And I was like, oh, okay. But you've watched The Vampire Diaries through and through 4 times. But maybe that has something to do with it too, just in the fact that like.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it does, and it's also the fact that we are more secluded and out on the farm. So, when they get home from work at the end of the day, it's not like they're going out to socialize with anybody. They're on the farm, and in the summer they're working, and in the winter they can't leave because gravel roads, man, gravel roads.
Yeah, and probably a Sasquatch if we are to truly understand the migration patterns of the Bigfoot. Because wasn't it out by Edgeley that guy tracked a Bigfoot for like 20 miles, he said? I'm pretty sure it was. Pretty sure it was. Is Edgeley the town that has sunflower days?
No, I don't think so. I did not enjoy my time in Edgeley. So.
No, okay. So we won't crossing that off the list. No more talking about Edgeley.
Well, it's the kind of place where I shit you not, you drive into town, and first of all, there's a giant sign that says the churches of Edgeley welcome you. And it lists every single church in town. I'm convinced there are more churches than people. And then you immediately cannot get NPR anymore, and the only radio station you can get is country. So it gives you an idea of the kind of people that are in that town.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Really progressive is what you're saying.
Yeah.
They
a lot of Hillary voters.
A lot of intellectuals.
Oh, yeah. No, they were all for Bernie, man.
Real deep thinkers.
So Rachel, you end up going to school where after you left your high school days?
Oh, I went to NDSU for theater.
Mm-hmm. And why?
Because I went to governor's school at NDSU for theater.
Oh, sure.
When I was going into my junior year of high school, and Joseph, my older brother, was at the time going to NDSU for theater. So it just felt like the thing to do. Also, my mother told me that she didn't care what I did for grad school, but she wanted me to be close enough for my undergrad that she could come visit.
Nice.
So at that point, if I wanted to go for theater, I could have done Concordia or MSUM, but I didn't really know that at the time. To me, NDSU was the only choice. Mm-hmm. Plus, I knew all the faculty because I'd worked with them during governor's school, so that felt really comfortable.
Did you ever do that summer program, and maybe as part of Governor's School that was in Lemoore. Like, didn't they have like a summer
Lemoore County Summer
program?
Musical Theater.
Yeah. Did you ever do that?
Yeah, I grew up out there. I did my first show out there when I was 5 years old. I was in Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat.
Which I think is still hanging up on the wall.
Oh,
right
yeah,
now.
it is. So, fun story. I was a tiny, tiny child. I was 5. And at the end of the show, when Joseph comes out in his chariot of gold to meet his family, it was this like plywood thing that was painted gold. And all the little kids would like push it out on stage. And it rolled over my foot and destroyed my sandals. And my foot was just this bloody mess. And so I ran off stage and was inconsolable because you needed to have sandals to be in the show. And I was ruining my sandals. And I was missing the curtain call because I was bleeding. And we patched me back up. But yeah, I missed the entire end of the show. I missed the curtain. That show has a 20-minute curtain call.
It does. It's true.
It does. It goes through every single song that is in the show, and it doesn't
Remember
reprise.
this one? Remember this one?
And so every group of people gets to come out and do their little thing, and I missed the one for the children, so I felt like I was just an absolute failure.
Your career was over.
Yeah.
If someone gave you the opportunity to like go out there with the children again just to get that bow, would you take it?
No.
Why not?
Not even a little bit. Because I've seen the show now as an adult, and I realize that is a 20-minute curtain call, and it is 20 minutes too long.
So if you've never been down to is it Lemoore Park? Is that what it's called?
It's Grand Rapids Park.
Okay.
It's in Grand Rapids, North Dakota, but it is in Lemoore County.
Okay.
So it is the Lemoore County Summer Musical Theater.
It is a great theater.
Oh, fantastic.
It's an old barn?
No, it was built as a theater. It was built as a
Really?
theater during the New Deal. It was one of the...
the CCC projects?
Yeah. And so it looks like a barn. It has the barn roof. It has that whole kind of structure, but it was built originally as a theater. And so it's wide open inside. It's got a beautiful stage. It's falling apart, but that's part of its charm.
Looks like it's going to burn down any second because the wiring is a little... there's a lot of years of wiring.
Joe worked there one summer building the set, and the raccoons were such a problem. They would come in.
What is it, Pawnee, Indiana?
It sounds like it, doesn't it?
Kidding.
And they would open up his Tupperware that had his lunch and stuff in it. Like...
And then flip them off.
Basically. No, I grew up at that theater. We did so many shows. My dad directed Cabaret one summer, so I actually knew. Do you know? That's how I know Mick.
Yeah.
He was in
okay.
that.
Gotcha.
And
Mick is also a Theater B Ensemble member,
He
for
is.
those of you who are just listening.
He is.
So he was in the show, and I was like the assistant to the director, which in hindsight was very much a stage manager. I took down all the blocking and like made sure that everybody got to their places and all that kind of stuff. But I was
That's definitely the stage manager.
right. I was 12 though, so
Gotcha.
yeah, and so I did that. I was also in 1776,
Ooh.
but not as one of the two women roles.
Oh, yeah.
I was a little old man.
So say you weren't Betsy Ross.
No, they decided to do that show, and there are there's a handful of men that would do the shows out there, and so it's 5 or 6 men that are playing the main roles, and then everybody else is women. So that was really fun. Joe played Benjamin Franklin.
I could
That's a
see
very
him playing
befitting
Benjamin
role.
Franklin.
Yeah, right.
Very befitting role.
Benjamin Franklin was known for his puns.
Was he?
Yep. Only that, though. Nothing else.
Wasn't he also known for his whores?
Nope. Just puns about whores.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that, yeah, when you were there, did they still have the sign on the wall that showed where the flooding went to in 97?
Yeah.
It's like halfway up the wall.
So the reason I know about this place is because I helped run the camping for a music festival out there and emceed it for 3 years. It was called Jake Star.
Oh, I did not know that.
And so I got to MC this festival, and they would put the children's acts in that facility, and they would let people camp out by the baseball diamonds where there actually is RV camping and stuff. It was a ton of fun.
It's a super great place. The theater is kind of falling to the wayside. It doesn't really have enough people in the area to support it, and gas prices are really high, so it's hard to justify driving out there every night to go to rehearsal.
That's too bad. I know that there is a school building nearby that somebody told me is for sale right now, and I had heard whispers of someone buying it and turning it into like a B&B.
Oh.
That would have like 25 rooms in it.
That would be amazing.
Is it the school that you're talking about? Is it a single floor school, or is it like
it's
the taller
it's
kind?
2 floors. And it was an all-encompassing, right, as the K through 12 school of that area. And it hasn't been the school in probably 30 or 40 years.
Gotcha. Yep.
And I think is the people who had owned the land that it butts up to were the ones telling me that.
I remember, so back when I was in high school, I had this friend named John Schuler, who I want to say he moved to Hunter, North Dakota. Maybe is what the place that he moved to. I can't remember.
Oh, and then he would have his little festival, right? No,
No,
never mind.
no,
Different guy.
no.
Different
You're
guy.
thinking of a different guy. But his parents bought. It's the same story. They bought a giant old school that hadn't been used for a while because the town was too small, and now like all the local towns were sending all their kids to this one new school, and it was going to cost them more to demo the building than to just sell it to the Schulers. And so his family bought it. They moved out there, and I went and stayed with him for a few weekends out there. It was amazing. It was like having, like, I went to Horseman Elementary School, which is a 3-story building with a basement, bomb shelter, I should say. And it was like having my old elementary school to just run around and do whatever. It had 2 gyms.
That's
It
fantastic.
was awesome.
Did you ever have fantasies as a kid about being locked in the school overnight?
Hell yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I wrote fiction about that.
Did you? So I've done a good number of post proms where I've essentially been locked in a school overnight, and it's not as romantic as I thought it was going
you
to
were
be.
locked at a school overnight with a lot of hormonal teenagers.
Why did
Yeah,
they
but they
lock
were-
you in?
Well, so there are most of these post proms are lock-ins because if you're not in by, let's say, like 11
Because
o'clock,
they don't want you leaving and getting drunk and coming back.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So,
So you could leave, just not come back in.
Right.
Correct.
And that's how my high school was.
but even leaving, you would have to wait until they contacted your parent.
It's kind of like when you take a soda out of a McDonald's, you can't go back the next day and get it refilled. Like, no, once you left the building with that cup, you can't refill it here anymore.
this cup. Although
Same thing.
Although
exact same
Subway was like, fuck that, and we're gonna sell you a cup that you can keep bringing back time and time again.
Jimmy John's across the street from NDSU, we would frequently just hold on to our cups for days
Really?
and bring them back. Mm-hmm.
Well, they say they're freaky fast. I boycott Jimmy John's because I've lived in 2 homes in Fargo that are 2 blocks outside of their delivery radius. And I've told them, you don't even have to get it here in this 15 minutes. I am fine if it took you 45 minutes. I would like one of your sandwiches. Sorry, sir, you're outside of our delivery area. And all the managers sound like that.
too.
They're like, excuse me, sir. It drove me nuts so much so that I wrote Jimmy John's corporate, and they sent
Strongly worded letter.
they sent a boilerplate letter back to me, and I sent that letter back to them saying, treat me like a human being.
So when I used to work with Governor's School for many, many years. I was one of the RAs on staff. But before that, I just taught their evening theater class. And so that was in the theater building across the street from the Jimmy John's. And Governor's School has a rule that they have a campus boundary, and the students are not allowed to cross that campus boundary without Governor's School staff. And in this case, I did not count. So the number of times that I would have students call Jimmy John's and have them deliver a sandwich, just walk it across the street.
Yep.
Be like, we can't leave. We need you to just walk it across the street for us.
And were they cool with that?
Yeah, they always looked very confused.
I used to do a thing. We had a hot tub in our backyard, and I used to order a pizza and leave a note being like, "Would you please deliver this to the hot tub in the backyard?" And the Domino's guy or gal was always pissed about it, having to like look over the fence and be like, "I got your pizza," and be like, "Just let yourself in. Just come on and just hit the knob," and then they wouldn't hit the knob right and be like, "Just Nope. I'd be yelling the directions to them from across the backyard.
We have a real lack of stoned delivery people in this town because those are the ones that are cool with whatever. You know, I mean, I just sort of assume that someone who's delivering me pizza is inebriated in some way. And so I'm like, yeah, they'll be down with whatever. They understand.
When you take a job delivering pizzas, do you think the first thing you ask the person who's training you in is like, have you ever had sex when you deliver this pizza? It was like those porns. Is that ever a real thing? Does people, you ever
I
deliver
don't think
to
it's
like
the first thing I would ask, but it's definitely on the short list.
Right.
Like, get through the training, understand who this person is what is their sense of humor? Are they going to fire me for asking this question? Cool, go.
I never wanted to do pizza delivery because I was paralyzed with fear of the notion that I would have to do math in my head if I wanted to pay with cash. Like I was supposed to okay, yeah, that means this and that and that. Like, oh, no, I don't think I could do that.
Here's the thing. So let me tell you a fat kid's rule to getting a better tip from me, because I've been ordering pizza since I was 6 years old. My parents were kind of neglectful. And so I looked up Domino's in the phone book, ordered a small sausage pizza, and paid for it all in change.
Oh, no.
Right? And so here's what I've learned over the years about pizza delivery. Number one, I understand that it doesn't always make it there right away. But even if you drive by slow, the second you get out of your car, if you put a little hop in your step, like you're, hurrying up to the front door, your tip just went up by $1. Because to me, it looks like you're trying to hustle it up there, right? You're trying to get me that pizza as fast as you can. And the first thing I want you to do is to say all right, you got this and this and this and this, and confirm it with me. Tip went up by another $1 right there. And also, I will say,
I hope all you pizza delivery people are listening to this right now.
I've told it to individual pizza people before, when I'm rewarding them, I'd be like,
I'm rewarding them.
See this Lincoln?
Good job, monkey.
See this Lincoln?
Well,
this is for
JJ.
you. Your base tip was $2. You earned an extra $3. You more than doubled your original tip, and here's why. So I'm sure that there's a list of people that no one likes to deliver to, and I'm on that list. So where did this even start? This is tangent 101 right here. Jimmy John's Governor's School. Well, what are you doing now, Rachel?
Well, I just got back from Sodbuster Days.
Oh, tell us
Fort
about
Ransom.
Sodbuster Days.
So my family is weird, which we have, I believe, begun to establish. And one of our eccentricities is that for the last 20 years, there is a weekend in July and a weekend in September when we go down to Fort Ransom State Park and we dress in pioneer garb and demonstrate making apple strudel and sauerkraut. So it's Sodbuster Days is a turn of the century prairie reenactment. We've got people from all over the state who will come and do various different demonstrations. There's
Is Carl Schmidt the tinsmith there by any chance?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know if we have a tinsmith.
He's pretty amazing.
I know we have a blacksmith shop. We actually have 2 blacksmith shops, and we have new this
rivals.
year. I know. Well, there's a little blacksmith shop that's a little bit more elite, and then there's the big blacksmith shop.
So we're talking about the difference between.
So there's the mom and pop blacksmith shop, and there's the Walmart blacksmith. There's big smithing is just.
Well, so it's the little blacksmith shop is this guy who's been doing it forever, and that's his place. Anybody who wants to blacksmith can just go schlep over to the other one. Is really what it is.
Okay.
And then this year we have a new sawmill. So that's really cool.
Is it like in the old Dudley Do-Right cartoons? I mean, are they strapping women to this thing and help me?
I mean, a piece of it did fly off today.
Oh my!
I wasn't there for it, but I heard about it.
Because you heard all the screams.
Well, I walked up to go see it because it's brand new this year, and I hadn't seen it in action, and they were fixing it, and so I didn't get to see it working, which made me sad.
Are they using old-timey, an old-timey motor, with all the belts and everything? Or?
It's built to turn of the century standards, so
Sweet.
It's all new stuff that it's built with. They're not using 80-year-old wood to build the thing, but it's built in the style of.
Cool.
And it looks really awesome. I'm sure that it was fun to watch working for those of people who got to see that. We also have a bunch of horse-powered farm equipment. So there's a horse-powered thresher. There's they're doing planting and harvesting and combining and stuff with horse-powered machinery.
Are they pulling sod as part of Sodbuster Days?
Are they
No.
busting it? I don't know what the fuck Sodbuster means.
What are the lyrics to the song Ghostbusters, but just put Sodbuster in there? If there's something strange in your neighborhood, who are you going to call? Sodbusters!
There's a big building that has a lot of food demonstrations in it. There's Rhubarb and Lefse.
That is one Norwegian food I cannot get behind.
Are you serious? It's one of my favorite things in the world.
What is it called?
It's called Rhubarb, and it is a cream pudding.
It's butter soup. Is what it is. It's butter
it's so good.
soup.
So you take
Those are two very different things. Cream pudding and butter soup are different.
So it's you take cream and flour and you cook it until it actually starts to make its own butter, and then you pour that butter out and keep stirring it until it's a nice smooth pudding consistency, and then you can pour the butter back on top with cinnamon and sugar. Is how I consume it, and it is magic.
Jill drinks it by the mug. It's like she takes a mug and then she drinks it, and that's her like holiday drink.
Oh, it's
is
so
it
yummy.
Is it too much like mayo for you? Is it
No.
amongst those
No,
things
it
that
is-
you don't like those
It is
It's very rich.
It is very rich.
And so, like, the sample cups are probably, I think they're like 2 or 4 ounce size. And that's enough to get an idea of what it is.
it kind of reminds me of warm rice pudding.
Okay.
A little bit. Like it's different, but like that's kind of the consistency a little bit. And people either I think love it or hate it.
Yeah.
I've never heard someone who's neutral. Who's Rhubarb neutral.
But yeah, so there's Rhubarb and there's Lefse. There's a couple that have been our camping buddies for the past 20 years, Dick and Jill Johnson, who make ice cream, hand cranked ice cream.
Oh, nice.
Oh yeah, and then they bring all of their own fresh fruit, so they add that to it. So they'll have their basic vanilla and chocolate, but then they'll also have things like raspberry rhubarb.
Snap.
Yeah,
My girlfriend makes
and we're back around to rhubarb.
a rhubarb reduction that she pours over ice cream. That is so good.
Yep.
Oh,
My mother and I are on a diet.
so am I.
Yeah. High five.
How much have you lost?
Almost 50 pounds since
Hey,
January.
good for you.
Thank you.
I'm at 46, so I'm right behind you.
Yes, fantastic.
Has your life changed a little bit from losing
A
weight?
little bit. It doesn't hurt so much when I'm standing a lot. So that's great.
How about sleeping?
I imagine that I'm sleeping better. I never thought that I was sleeping poorly to begin with, but I was informed that I was in insomnia and I had low-level sleep apnea.
I've noticed I've been sleeping a lot better. It has been a pretty major change in my life. Weight loss is, I think, it's difficult, right? Because food to me is associated with happiness.
Pleasure.
Oh,
and with
food is my
history.
mother's love language.
Yep.
Anytime she wanted to show us that she cared about us, she made us something to eat.
And so, and not to segue back into this, but I'm interested in how you're making the sauerkraut. Because it sounds delicious. And I was just telling Tucker that I really love Reuben sandwiches right now.
Oh, okay. So we make sauerkraut.
What's the process?
So this is the recipe that my dad's family always used. It's 50 pounds of cabbage to a pound of salt, adjust as necessary. And that's it. We're none of this added vinegar or water bullshit.
Oh.
It's straight cabbage and salt. And so what we do is we shred the cabbage. We have an old fashioned cabbage shredder that came from my dad's family. But you can use like a food processor if you're making a smaller amount.
If you're not dealing in 50 pounds of cabbage, maybe like 2 or 3 pounds of cabbage.
So we shred the cabbage, and then you layer that in with the cabbage and the salt, and then you pound it. You stomp the snot out of it. And when I was a kid, we used a baseball bat. Now we have a fancy sauerkraut stomper. But you.
Who's signed up?
Episode title. I've been waiting for an episode title. Sauerkraut Stomper.
A fancy
Fancy sauerkraut
Who puts that on their Christmas wish list? I am looking for a fancy sauerkraut stomper.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said a sauerkraut romper.
This is the worst Christmas ever.
So you stomp.
I thought you meant an angry German.
Oh, I thought you said a sauerkraut damper. This is for our HVAC system. It's to put the smell of sauerkraut into the HVAC system. I thought you meant a sauerkraut camper. I bought a camper and filled it with sauerkraut. It's a Winnebago. I'm sorry.
It's okay. This feels just like being at home. It's great.
I thought you were talking about the character Doug Stamper from House of Cards.
I built one out of sauerkraut. Looks just like him. It's at the beginning of season 2 when they thought he was dead.
I thought you said you needed a new laundry hamper.
A sauerkraut hamper.
Yeah.
Now, a sauerkraut hamper, that's got legs.
Yeah. You need to put your sauerkraut somewhere.
Yeah, might as well be in a hamper.
Might as well be in a hamper.
Exactly.
Where do you think the term hamper comes from? That's such a weird thing, don't you think? Like,
Yeah. It was von Hamper who invented it.
Yeah.
James von Hamper.
where must I keep my dirty lederhosen?
He was from South Africa. He didn't sound like that.
I'm not even going to attempt that accent because every time I try and do that South African accent, it turns into an Irish accent.
How?
I don't know, but like, do you ever see District 9? Did you see District 9? I love listening to Chartle Copley. Is that Chartle?
Sure.
Sure.
I love listening to him talk. His South African accent is just amazing. And it's just real. Anyway.
Sauerkraut Stamper.
Sauerkraut Stamper.
Stomper. Come on, guys. So you stomp until the salt forces the natural juices out of the cabbage, and so it starts to make its own brine. And then you continue to layer. And it takes a lot of effort initially, and then the more sauerkraut that you have in the bucket, we use 5-gallon buckets for ours. And the more sauerkraut you have in there, and the more juice it already is, it's easier to get more out of it. And then by the time you've finished with your bucket, you should have enough brine in the sauerkraut that it completely covers the top of the sauerkraut. And then we let ours ferment for 4 or 6 weeks.
What do you cover it with?
See, and that's a cool thing. We used to just use like dinner plates that were weighted down. Mm-hmm. But we learned a fun technique from one of the people who came by during Sodbuster days, where we actually do a water bladder now. So you take 2 garbage bags and you put probably 1 gallon or 2 of water in one of them, double bag it, set it on top of the bucket, and it creates a perfect seal. So you don't get any air circulation, because you do want there to be some bacterial growth. That's the fermentation process. But you don't want any extra airflow, or it'll actually start to spoil.
Well, and I've also heard too that like people deal with bugs and stuff like that, right?
I suppose that's never really been an issue for us.
Well, when I make sauerkraut in my dirty basement, I deal with like millipedes getting in there.
Sure.
And I think that they probably died a wonderful death, right?
Probably.
They died in
Sauerkraut is
brine.
amazing.
That's why he had to sell his house at a loss, because the purchasers found out that someone had been using the basement as a sauerkraut lab.
I mean, the smell never goes away.
No, that's very true.
No, and it's so funny because we demonstrate making the sauerkraut out front, and then inside we have it on the wood stove, where we have it cooked with pork and nefla, and oh yeah, it's magnificent. And so the smell of that permeates the cabin, and you get one of 2 responses when people walk in. They either say, "Oh my God, that smells like sauerkraut," or "Oh my God, that smells like sauerkraut."
It's easily identified. It's just it's like the Rhubarb, right?
You either love it or you hate it.
No one's sauerkraut neutral.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we cook it with pork and nefla. You want a really fatty pork roast. You sear it on all sides, throw it in a crock pot with the sauerkraut, let it cook all day. And the pork, the fat from the pork helps mellow out the sauerkraut taste. So it's not so sharp. You still get the sourness and the saltiness, but it's not as abrasive that you'd get in just a regular. So it's not a condiment. We actually eat it as a meal.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so you want it to ferment for the full time because there's a process of the bacterial growth. It'll go through stages and different bacteria will grow, and that changes the flavor, which is why when you buy canned sauerkraut from the store where they use vinegar to speed up the fermentation process, it tastes wrong because you want it to last that full time.
I'm always weirded out when there's something in the grocery store that can be sold in a can on a shelf that's not refrigerated, and then the same exact product is in the refrigerated section in like not canned.
Oh yeah. If you can sauerkraut, then yeah, then it's shelf stable. If you're not gonna can it, if you're just gonna you can just throw it in a Ziploc bag and throw it in your freezer. That's safe. But the process of canning something makes it shelf stable.
How long will sauerkraut last before you have to refrigerate it or freeze it?
In a can?
No, like
in the basement.
The stuff you guys are making, yeah.
Oh,
because it's already sitting out for 4 to 6 weeks, right?
Right, yes. And so if you don't get to it at that point, it's not.
Have you guys ever gotten totally drunk off of it? Like, does it ferment to the point of where you get alcoholic?
I haven't noticed that. But however, if your seal isn't completely good on your sauerkraut, you will have a spoilage on top. So before we started using the water bladder, my mom would have to scrape off probably a gallon's worth of inedible stuff.
Yeah.
And that takes a real brave person.
And what do you do with the inedible stuff?
You just give it to the dog.
Yeah, because they can eat it, right? Yeah. They're probably getting shit-faced off of it. It's probably it's fermented to the point of where it's boozy.
I'm fairly certain we just threw it in the on the compost heap, but I'm sure the dog also got to it then.
People tell me that cabbage is one of those miracle vegetables.
That's what I've heard.
You seem to have a strong response to it, Rachel.
I've heard that. I've been living off of cabbage, I've been eating sauerkraut my entire life, and I have a myriad of health problems. So,
is cabbage a very hardy plant or something, or is it easy
it's supposed
to
to have? Yes. You have to be careful with cabbage moths because they'll eat it up.
Wait, cabbage what?
Moths.
There's moths that just eat cabbage?
Yeah, they're white.
What?
Yep. That's all that there is to that.
You put a bunch of mothballs out in the cabbage patch?
You spray for them. That's right. We are not organic.
That's all right. Really, so many places are not, even when they claim that they're organic.
We call ourselves sustainable in that we will do our very, very best to avoid using chemicals if we can, but sometimes chemicals are the best option.
I only want to eat sauerkraut the way the Native Americans used to make it.
Okay, no. So this is one of my favorite parts about sauerkraut and about the history of it. So sauerkraut, at least the way that we make it, came from the Germans from Russia. And they would use, when they were fermenting it in their crocks, they would have a board on top of the sauerkraut, and then they would have a big sauerkraut rock that sat on top that weighted it down. So you didn't get the air in there. And those rocks were difficult to find, those big, nice, heavy rocks. And they would be passed down for generations. They were heirlooms, these sauerkraut rocks. And when they came to America, they only were allotted certain amounts of baggage, either in weight or in volume, what have you, that they couldn't bring everything that they owned. So they would leave things behind in order to take their sauerkraut rocks with them to the New World. And then they moved to North Dakota where there's fucking rocks everywhere.
Oh, those poor bastards.
It's my favorite thing.
Well, I can't believe I left that Action Comics #1 back there in German Russia.
We could have brought Grandma.
Be like, my wedding dress. I was to get married, but we bring rock instead. So it's interesting you mentioned that because I was recently watching a program where a family was arguing because the matriarch of the family had not said in her will who was going to who was going to get possession of a ball of what they called mother yeast, which was when you make sourdough bread. Mm-hmm. You use this ball of yeast that the longer it sits, the tastier this yeast or whatever is. And so this yeast had been handed down through 3 generations.
What?
And people were dying to get a hold of the mother ball. And it became a huge plot point of an entire episode of this program.
I'm trying to imagine what a mother ball of yeast that's been used by generations.
I mean, my dad makes sourdough bread, but his starter is just in a quart jar in the fridge. But that came from the Yukon. Yeah, the the Oregon Trail.
See? There's the mother yeast right there.
Yep. You can just get that for free online. There's a family that has been taking care of this particular strain of sourdough for generations. It came from the Oregon Trail or the Yukon Trail. I don't know, one of the trails. And
there's a pretty big difference between the Yukon Trail and the Oregon Trail.
And the Trail of Tears.
Yep.
Maybe it's from that trail.
but so they're
Also, has anyone ever done a trail of beers, like a really insensitive brewery tour?
Oh no! I was gonna say a thing that was bad. I shouldn't.
This episode is fun. This is a good one.
I'm glad. I'm having fun too. But yeah, so you can just go online, and the kids of this guy who has been like curating this sourdough, think it's really important that this sourdough exists in the world, and so you just write them a letter and send them a self-addressed stamped envelope, and they'll send you dehydrated chunks of the sourdough with instructions on how to activate it again.
Wow. We're gonna have to get a hold of this. I want some of this for
I will
the studio.
talk to my dad.
Great.
That's
Excellent.
where his comes from.
Yeah, we're planning on putting in a kitchen over here.
There is a kitchen right over there. We'll just bake up some bread. Wouldn't it be nice if we offered people bread at the beginning of every episode?
Yeah, I'd love to take on another task.
Yeah. I get here late, and Tucker should have already set up so I can come in and be like, let's get this thing going. Come on, I'm sick and tired of waiting. But I think if you bake some bread.
Tucker, how's the bread not cooked yet?
Tucker, what is this, a half loaf? Jesus Christ.
What is this, pumpernickel?
You definitely did not let this prove long enough.
No.
It is underproved.
This is our most food-related podcast yet. This is great.
So I'm going to continue that by saying that my family also demonstrates apple strudel at Sodbuster Days. And
When you say demonstrates, I'm not used to that term being used in this context.
So when we're doing sauerkraut, we'll have it out front. My younger brother typically will be shredding the cabbage and stomping it and talking about how you make it, the history of it, and all of that. And then they'll come inside, and then I will serve them hot, fresh, and delicious sauerkraut. Hot, old, and delicious sauerkraut.
We've got the hottest, oldest sauerkraut.
Sounds like you're introducing a stripper.
Call 1-800 Sauerkraut Stomper.
Coming to the stage right now. Put your hands together, get your dollar bills ready for sauerkraut.
Sorry, Rachel.
It's okay. I am having a great time. But so with me, so when we do the apple strudel, we only do that once a day because it's such a task. So we bring a table outside, and I've already mixed up the dough and let that sit, and then we stretch it for everyone to see. We talk about the process, explain what we're doing. Everyone can watch and ask questions, and then we throw it in a Dutch oven, and we bake it around back of the log cabin. And in an hour or so, we serve it, and people can come and get a taste of it. And it is a hot commodity. And so I fought a little old lady, and I was able to bring you each a little sample of apple strudel that came out of the Dutch oven at 3:00 this afternoon.
Are you guys growing your own apples?
We do not grow our own apples.
That's the one thing that you're not.
We've tried.
operating?
That's tasty.
So good, right?
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I'm going to be polite and wait until the end of the podcast before I gorge myself.
I'm not the host. I can do what I want.
Wipe your hands.
Claire actually makes apple strudel on her own sometimes. So if you really, really, really want to be friends with someone, I recommend Claire. And then make sad eyes at her and tell her how much you love apple strudel. Maybe she'll make it for you.
Nice.
But what was I talking about?
Demonstrating apple strudel. You brought us some.
Put it in
I
the
was
Dutch
Oh, you were
oven.
asking about apple trees. So we used to have 2 crabapple trees in our backyard at the farm. Those then reached their end point, and we tore them out, and we've got a ton of apple trees that my dad put in with the help of, I think it was the North Dakota Conservation Society.
Yeah.
I think. So they're all trees that are native to the area. And so he built a new shelter belt for our farm using a bunch of fruit trees. So
You're just waiting for those things to mature up.
waiting about 20 years to get some real good apples. He goes out and waters those sometimes.
Sure. I mean, Apple tree. I noticed that people love apple trees sometimes more than they love their own children.
Well, the thing about an apple tree is you put in a lot of work and you never know if it's going to work out until it's reached maturity, much like a child. But if an apple tree disappoints you, you can just chop it down.
How long does it take typically for an apple tree to reach maturity?
I don't know. It's quite a while. Like they'll start producing fruit. I think like sometimes like 7 or 8 years into their life. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
But it's usually not very much.
It depends on the cross-pollinating too.
Right.
Is a
and
big part of
sometimes
it.
you'll talk to people who like will swear that that fruit trees cycle. So you'll get a good year and then a bad year. And that's just how it works. I'm not convinced that that's true, but what do I know?
And I'm also told that, the older the apple tree, the better the quality of the fruit is because it can support a heavier weight, and so it can support things. It's also sucking up a lot of water, so as an apple tree grows, it's actually drying out the land around it.
Right. And if the tree is young and it starts producing the buds to create fruit, you actually want to trim those off because it's going to send all of its energy into the fruit to procreate because that's its natural instinct, and it's not going to keep growing and be strong.
Gotcha. Okay.
Similar to when you're working with like a tomato plant or something like that. If it starts producing fruit too early, you want to trim that back.
What are some family remedies that you remember? Because I feel like your family has some tried and true old remedies that you've used.
Not a ton. Really, it was just Vicks for everything.
I know some people who rub Vicks on your feet and then you put socks on when you sleep.
Yes, 100%. I still do that.
I thought Vicks was just for your chest, and they're like, no, everything.
Everything. Put it on your chest.
When your mom has to do the sauerkraut, maybe she puts a little bit under her nose.
Yep. The bottoms of your feet. I've also been told, we never did this when I was a kid. My mom talks about it now, that if you're sick, you cut an onion and put a chunk of onion on your feet and put a sock on, and then that will suck all the toxins out.
I've heard that same. And you look at you put like a white onion on your foot, and in the morning it's all black because it sucked all the impurities out of your body.
Did it though?
I just think that you probably just sweat all over it.
Yeah, I think you have dirty feet. And then
I think we should test this out.
Sure. So we're gonna measure how much toxins we have in our bodies first, and
we're gonna
It's gonna be totally scientific.
We're gonna go over to the Mexican village, and we're gonna use their love test machine. And we're going to see if it improves.
Well, we got to make sure that we both have the same kind of onion, because I didn't know there were more than 2 onions until she started saying all these different names of stuff.
Oh, there's so many onions.
There's so many kinds of onions.
Yeah. And you can get purple onions and red onions.
Mm-hmm.
The Walla Walla sweet onion, as we said, you can eat like an apple.
The Vidalia yellow onions.
Mm-hmm. I called it Vidalia for a long time, and nobody corrected me until one day a really old woman at a farmer's market tap, 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 tap on my shoulder, and she goes, "You're saying that wrong." And I really thank her because everyone else let me look like an asshole for all those years. And at one point I was saying it a lot because we were making jelly out of it. And so I'd give it as a Christmas present and be like, "Hope you enjoy your Vidalia jelly."
It just sounds so funny.
Sounds like genitalia to me.
Genitalia jelly?
Yeah.
Oh, God.
That's a whole other podcast. So let's touch on theater a little bit.
Sure.
You went to NDSU for theater. Are you done, or are you still going?
No, I'm done at NDSU.
Yeah?
So I kind of function as a freelance stage manager, but I really only work with Theater B. I have an uncomfortable history with FMCT in that they fired me via email and wouldn't let me come in and talk about it.
That sucks.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, it real sucks.
So
that real sucks.
Shouldn't have set that gazebo on fire, I guess, Rachel.
I know.
That's what happens.
It's a pavilion, Tucker. It's a pavilion.
It is now after they rebuilt it.
Yeah.
So
I don't really work with them. But I mean, I guess I'm open to working at other places, but Theater B is the only one who talks to me.
So tell me the last piece of theater you were at that you feel changed your life, or the first piece that changed your life.
So I just finished, not just, but I had the honor and privilege of stage managing The Moors at
show.
Theater B.
It was wonderful.
Unbelievably good. It is probably one of the best shows that I've ever worked on, and Tucker is going to say that it's because he was on it.
Oh, no,
Okay.
no,
I was like,
not at all.
No, it was truly amazing. It was a fantastic, stellar cast, a really great piece of script. And everybody who was working on that was the right people for the job. I have never had more fun working on a play. And yeah, and I think that it did like leave a lasting impact on the people that saw it. It was definitely one of those shows that you don't leave and then not ever think about again.
Mm-hmm. I'm bummed I missed the salon day for that.
I also missed it.
That was
I
a
bet the
good day.
conversation was great.
It was interesting though about the salon day was so I showed up that day to house manage, and then Carrie goes, "Hey, I need you to do something extra for me." I was like, "Yeah, what is it? Can you run the salon and ask all of the questions that you haven't prepared for and you didn't know was happening today?" Okay. and it was a lot of fun.
Oh, good.
It worked out really, really well.
Yeah, I
but-
wasn't able to stay. I had to leave because I was helping. So my best friend, Michelle Pearson, is one of the 3 heads of CoreCon.
And big fan of CoreCon too.
Yeah. And so CoreCon we had our last meeting before we actually had to put on the convention, and that Sunday. So I had to leave real quick to go do that.
You're also very connected with the drag community in town.
I have a lot of friends. It's very weird. I didn't realize just how connected I was until I started taking other friends with me to things, and then everyone would be like, "Hey, Rachel," and I was like, "Hi," and they'd be like, "You know everyone." I was like, "I don't know everyone. I guess I know a lot of people." But yeah, so my friend Michelle Pearson also hosts for a lot of the drag and burlesque shows in town. So I've had the honor and privilege of getting to go to a lot of those and hang out with her. My best friend in college, Ryan Thompson, was a drag queen. And so I went to a lot of her shows in college. And then I stopped going because I learned something very interesting, which was that Ryan Thomas and I were very, very good friends, did not get along very well with her drag persona.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
I don't know. And I think that that's not uncommon because a lot of times when people become queens, they channel a lot of different elements of their personality that make them a really good entertainer. Sometimes it means that they're extra sassy. Sometimes it means that they're really brusque and abrasive. And sometimes it means that they're a little whorish. You know, it just, they become really good entertainers, but it's not necessarily who they are personally. And so I didn't get along very well with Katie. Brian and I, great friends to this day. Katie, I really didn't like going to her shows.
Isn't that interesting?
It was very fascinating for me to realize.
I think that everyone who's in theater kind of lives this dual life as here's me when I'm theatrical and here's me when I'm not theatrical. And sometimes the theatrical thing bleeds into your other life. So you get excited about something and it pops up, but then also you kind of revert back to your profession. You never bring your professional life into the theater part because that's the boring, like that's you sitting at home and having, dinner for one or, talking to someone about a spreadsheet.
Right.
But you can bring the theatrical in and make that spreadsheet conversation like, oh, and then I put stickers on it and it was great.
How much of that would you say is part of, drag as a form of theater is very much about creating a persona, and then that persona isn't always just on the stage.
Right.
I mean, that can often be just on the street in regular life or whenever.
Yeah.
Do you think that the fact that the art is about identity and crafting a persona around that lends to that?
And that's not something I'm entirely comfortable talking about because that's not my story to tell. That's
Sure.
not my reality. I enjoy drag as a consumer of it. And I'm a big supporter of it, but I know that drag can be a lot of different things for a lot of different people. And performers of drag can find that is a real solace. It's a great form of expression. I don't feel like I know very many queens who don't feel, at least in some way, that their drag persona isn't somehow something that has made them a better person or helped them realize something about themselves. But that's, like I said, that's not my story to tell. That's not my reality. So I don't know. It could be something like that, but.
If you had to live without lemons or limes, which would it be?
Without?
So you're colonizing Earth 2. And you have collected the base DNA of all of these plants.
Sure.
But you only have one sample vial space left. And you have to choose they bring lemons or limes?
That is a very difficult question.
Shouldn't be. That should be really easy, Rachel.
Really?
Yeah, that should be really easy.
I'm thinking lemons.
You'd save
I
lemons?
think so.
Do you like lemon-based desserts?
I feel like you oftentimes use lemons as that kind of tart element in a lot of different things in a way that you don't necessarily use limes, like as in salad dressings and in desserts and in
Like
garnishes. Yeah, like a lot of things like that, where that lemon is the thing that you use as an acidic element.
Okay, so we're not friends anymore because I pick limes.
Yeah, I'm actually with JJ in this, so get out. We're going to delete
I'm
everything we've
taking
recorded
apple
so far.
strudel back then.
Yeah. No, you're not.
That's why I ate it already.
I find that that's a question that really, like, people have to think harder about that question than they really should, and then they second guess themselves. That's my ultimate icebreaker. So if I ever did a corporate speech where I had to go into companies, it'd be like, look to the person to your left, look to the person to your right, size them up. Would this person save lemons or would they save limes? My name is Gary Citrus, and I will be speaking to you for the next 2 hours.
There is hope for Rachel, though, that she'll come over to the lime side of things at some point. Because I discovered yesterday
Come to the limelight.
that yesterday I changed my mind over a long-held food opinion.
Oh yeah, which one?
I used to always think that soft shell tacos were superior to crunchy tacos. No longer.
Really?
Crunchy tacos now for this guy going forward.
That's fantastic. I'm really proud.
I
of you.
was
What changed your mind?
hardcore.
You had tacos tonight.
I had tacos yesterday too. There's a reason for that. I went to Taco Bell yesterday and forgot to say the word soft when I ordered my tacos. So I got hard shell tacos.
Were you just like heartbroken and disappointed?
No, I mean I got back home and I thought, I still like hard shell tacos. And it's Taco Bell, so disappointment is in the future no matter
Right.
what.
I mean, when I go to Taco Bell, it is 100% for the Doritos Locos Taco.
Oh, so that'll be the next hit.
Oh,
then
it's
for
so
me.
good.
That'll be
It
the
should
next
not
hit.
be that good. It is so good.
Maybe if they make a soft shell version of that, I'll go back to soft shells. But can you imagine what that would be like? Heaven.
Can you imagine what it was like to be at Taco John's? Like you're sitting in the Taco John's R&D and they're like, this Doritos taco is knocking us out of the water. I need 10 ideas up on the board right now. And someone goes, Flaming Hot Cheetos.
I still don't understand why we don't have pepper jack easy cheese. That is some bullshit.
I have no response for that.
You're talking about like the canned cheese?
Yeah. Like
Why
that's one of those things that you think it would be obvious, right? Like someone, we should have this.
Well, because there's American,
shell is-
there's cheddar. What
there's
else is there?
American cheddar, sharp cheddar.
I mean, so
bacon cheddar.
I'm going to say a thing. I'm going to say that I am not upset because I do not want my pepper jack cheese bastardized in that way.
Well, but yeah, it's not real cheese.
I
though.
know.
So it's pepper jack
So I would be
flavor.
upset. I'd be like expecting it to be like pepper jacky, and it would not be pepper jacky.
But it might though.
Did you see how she reacted to people putting vinegar in sauerkraut? Like, this girl has serious opinions about her food.
Oh no, I shit you not. When my mother once had to use canned sauerkraut, and she rinsed it first.
Really?
Yeah,
She was like, get that vinegar out of here.
Yeah, she's like, it's gross with.
Vinegar is BS.
She's like, I could still taste it, but it's better now.
So what led her to having to use canned? Was it a tough year?
We ran out.
Just
Our
ran out?
sauerkraut is very, very popular. It sells out very quickly.
And so there'll be more sauerkraut at Sodbuster Days round 2 in September?
Yeah, so we'll use the sauerkraut that we made this year, and in July.
How much are you making?
So usually in the past we've done 200 pounds of cabbage into sauerkraut.
Which would be 4 pounds of salt.
Yes.
I pay attention.
Yeah, you do. But I think this year we only did 100. We only did 4 5-gallon buckets worth this year, and usually we do 6. But we also were able to use our own cabbage this year in the July show, which is really surprising. Cabbage isn't usually ready, so frequently we've had to purchase cabbage from the Hutterites for the July show. And then we'll get that home. We'll throw it in the basement. And then Mom will can it up, and we'll use that for the September show. But we will almost certainly end up making more sauerkraut throughout the year, just because, I don't know. They usually plant something around the ballpark of like 300 and 400 cabbages.
Well, like you said, you guys eat it as a meal.
We do. And
So-
we also sell it at farmer's market, and that goes over really, really well. I think we brought 18 jars of sauerkraut to Southwest Days this weekend to sell, and that sold out pretty quickly. Yeah.
Interesting.
We're very, very popular for our sauerkraut.
You said that with so much pride. I love it. You're
Oh,
like,
we're
somebody. Kind of a big deal.
We had somebody who was driving through North Dakota on a trip, and they made a 2-hour detour because they remembered that we said that we lived near Jamestown, and they came and found us so that they could buy sauerkraut from us.
Oh man. Do people like buy up some of your sauerkraut and then head to Wishick to get the sausage and be like, "This is a true North Dakota treat"?
They should. I don't know if
honey,
that happens.
this kraut is the sourest. That's what I imagine old people say to each other when they get sauerkraut they travel across the country for.
Shut up, Delilah. You know as well as I do that the sourest kraut is in Mason City, Iowa.
Delilah, not in front of the Germans.
Okay, so let's wrap up this conversation.
Okay.
With a random question.
Sure.
That I'm going to figure out. Actually, you know what? Hold on. I've got a. Are you smarter than the fifth grader?
Ooh,
over here?
probably not. I've met fifth graders.
So you don't actually have to like get the question right, but let's see where this takes us. Okay.
Okay.
So this is the $1 million question. Fifth grade animal science. The bumblebee bat is extinct. True or false?
I've never even heard of that.
The bumblebee bat is extinct. Does that make you think of anything? I'll find out.
Well,
the answer
I
too.
mean, I've been trying to convince my parents that they need to build a bat house at the farm.
Really?
Oh, yeah, because a single brown bat can eat up to 1,000 mosquitoes in an hour.
Ew.
And that
So-
sounds like the best solution to any problem ever.
Sure.
So I've always
Because
been
A,
told
you
that,
get bats, and B, you have no more mosquitoes.
Yeah.
I've always been told that bats are like people who have bats around love them, but I'd be freaked out.
Yeah, I brought that up to my father, and he said, you know what my dad always used to say? Bats may eat mosquitoes, but that doesn't necessarily mean that bats are a good thing. Like, oh,
Like his dad said that enough that it left an impression on your dad. What's your dad's name?
Tim.
Tim, come here, Tim. Tim, it's Christmas morning, Tim, and remember, just because bats eat mosquitoes doesn't mean that they're a good thing. Tim, it's your wedding day, Tim. Tim, don't forget, just because bats eat mosquitoes doesn't mean they're a good thing.
Dad, just because your first fiance left you for a bat tamer doesn't mean that you should be
Tim,
slamming these innocent, beautiful creatures.
Tim, our president's been impeached. And don't forget, just because bats eat mosquitoes doesn't mean they're a good thing.
I'm gonna think that it is extinct because we haven't heard of it.
Yeah, or it's not extinct because we haven't heard of it.
Or it's a trick question. There never was one in the first place.
I own 3 books that have Jeff Foxworthy on the cover. This is just a
You're
side
saying that
piece of
publicly?
trivia. Yeah.
I was going to say, I feel like we need to talk about what's gone wrong in your life.
So
They written in crayon.
So you're saying true. It's extinct, Tucker.
I'm guessing it's extinct.
I'm going to say that it's not.
That way we know one of us is right.
Yeah.
Right. Rachel is correct.
Okay.
It is not extinct, but it is endangered. Now, side note, this book is from what's
So
the
by
publishing
now-
date on it?
By now you're saying it could be long gone.
Right. I think that those are loaded questions. Library of Congress cataloging in publication date is available upon request. So I'd have to call them and ask.
Are you serious? There's no publication date
no,
listed?
there's not.
I don't
have to
believe you.
call-
I don't
I'm
believe
telling
you.
you. Look at this.
Pretty sure that they
don't-
have to
Oh,
do that.
I
well,
bet
the-
if you
the-
hand the book over, one of us finds that
Yep.
publication.
So
date
here's the
pretty
thing.
quick.
It's like when you can't find something and you call your mom and she finds it immediately.
Yeah, it's on
So
your head.
here's the only thing. There's a copyright date of 2007.
Sure.
But that really doesn't mean anything because these are questions from the game show.
Yeah, but do you really think they did like a second printing? Probably not.
No, I'm saying
But-
like the
but the
copyright is for
question-
the game show.
Oh, okay.
So that's what I'm saying. And so I will
So the
turn this
copyright
over
is
to
for
you.
the game show or the copyright is for the book?
It's for the game show, I think. If I had to stamp on it, because it literally says in there that
It really does. You're not lying.
it's
Library of
available upon request.
So you mean if you had a stomp on there, sauerkraut stomp on there?
That we should put that.
I want to know I think what we should do is we should go through and make this request. Because who do you think has actually requested this?
And this is HarperCollins, so you know they're still around.
Okay, we got to request in like the old-timeiest way we possibly can.
Telegram.
The I was going to say faxing it. That they would
Western
actually receive
Union. Send a Western Union.
Yes. So we just recently, Rachel, received a letter from a gentleman who listens to the podcast.
In Milwaukee. It was postmarked from Milwaukee.
Yeah.
No return address.
And our Patreon site hadn't been set up yet, which it is, by the way, now, patreon.com/JJMeetsWorld.
Give us some money.
In the meantime, he didn't have a way to send us money. And somehow he got JJ's home address.
And so it was addressed to JJ Meets World.
Okay.
And it was a very nice note, and it was like these patriotic puppies. And it details about like, I think you'd like this. Isn't it weird how two of the puppies have collars and one of them has a bow tie? So two of them are sort of enslaved and the other one's the freewheeler. And with it is $20 in $2 bills.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
And
I have a $2 bill in my photo album.
Do you really?
Yeah.
And these ones are crisp.
Yeah.
They're like newish $2 bills.
So my dad went on a trip to, I want to say it was Toadsuck, Arkansas, but I think that it wasn't.
Toadsuck?
Which is a real place. Oh, no, it was from... Oh, I don't remember where he went, but he brought back my mother a T-shirt that said, "Where is Yes and Such, Arkansas, halfway between Toadsuck and Pickle Gap."
Oh, my God. Pickle Gap?
I just want to imagine being a cheerleader for the football team at Toadsuck.
Yeah. Toadsuck v. Pickle Gap.
Anyway, no.
Rivalry of the century.
So my dad went on
Let's
this trip.
brine them.
So my dad went on this trip and brought back souvenirs for everyone, and you want to know what I got?
What?
Fucking $2 bill.
Nice.
He's like,
$2
right.
bill.
He's like, these aren't going to be in production much longer. This is probably the last $2 bill you'll ever see. And I was like, you fucking forgot to bring me anything. So that is the $2 bill that is in my photo album at home.
That's nice. And if you ever really needed it, you could always turn around.
You know, it's losing interest by sitting in that photo book. It should be in a bank.
It should be. Who's on the $2 bill? Do you know? Is it Jefferson, I think?
No, he's on something else. I can't remember.
He's on like the nickel, right?
Yeah, it's a president. I'm gonna have
It's
to
not
look it up.
Jefferson.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Double check.
I've interacted with one recently, and I obviously don't remember. It didn't leave that much of a...
You interacted with a Jefferson or a $2 bill?
Yeah. But yeah, I would... And by the way, listener, if you're out there listening to this podcast, could you please send me another note with your actual address? Because we'd love to send you some JJ Meets World swag to thank you for that. Because it was the first person who donated to our podcast.
Aww.
And Rachel, you can... This is fun, isn't it? This
Yes.
is friggin' awesome.
It is actually super fun. I was concerned. I assumed that you only invited me because your other guest canceled. And
Nope.
you were like, who do we know who might be free right now?
I mean, it's
who
not the
clearly doesn't
only
have a
reason
life?
we invited you.
Also because I'm not good at doing scheduling before the day of.
Yeah.
That's more like...
And I'm going to count on him to make bread.
By the way, it is Thomas Jefferson. You're right.
Yeah,
He's
there
on
you
the $2
go.
bill. Yeah.
There you go.
Tommy J, as they used to say.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that we've exhausted topics I didn't even know were going to exist.
But we didn't even talk about my family band.
Well, that's going to have to be podcast part 2.
Okay.
You know what I want is
Keep wanting more.
Next time Tim is in town, we got to get him and your mom on this podcast.
My mother is delightful.
I would love to have a Geinert family
Round table.
Are you kidding me?
So people who meet my younger sister Claire frequently say that she's their favorite Geinert, to which her response is always, without fail, they just clearly haven't met my mother yet.
Oh.
So
I feel like I've met your parents, but I don't recall.
Joe's friends in college used to refer to my mom as Mama T-Rex
Why?
because A, she has tiny little arms, and
And yet she's doing all that krauting.
but also
Mama Gainer be krauting.
like a T-Rex when
Her vision is based on movement.
when random children wander into her nest, she adopts them as her own.
Okay.
That was something that the
How do we
T-Rex
know
did?
that T-Rexes did that?
Well, so I don't think we're positive. I think it's just
That sounds like a stretch. Like,
no. What's happened is we found fossilized nests for T-Rex, and there have been on occasion so that with the baby T-Rexes, there have been like another random baby in there, and the assumption has been that is what's going on,
Like an
and not
Archaeopteryx.
simply
And not that it's an appetizer.
right. Which is also, I mean, it seems to me like that would be a valid option. But anyway.
Oh, this is a good one. Also, it got insanely hot in the studio.
It got really warm very
I'm
quickly.
real sweaty, real bad. So this is a good spot to end it. Rachel, thank you so
Of course.
much.
Thank
and
you for
we'll get to
having
the
me.
family band on Rachel version 2 on
Yeah.
JJ Meets World. It's going to be a blast. And if so, next Sodbuster Days is coming up in September.
Yes, it is the weekend after Labor Day.
And if people want to find you, do you have a Twitter account?
Oh,
or anything
I don't
like
really
that?
Twitter that much. I have one. I'm also on Instagram and on Facebook. But I don't know. I feel like I should be plugging something. I don't really have anything to plug.
That's awesome. Sometimes you just gotta leave it at what it is. you
Sure.
know? I mean, you've already people are already be like, I gotta get a hold of some of that fucking sauerkraut. It sounds
the apple
amazing.
strudel.
And the strudel. So if you folks didn't understand that, you got to get to the strudel ASAP. You got to strudel it up.
Yeah.
Well, how long does it take to bake?
About an hour plus a little bit
Do
sometimes.
people pre-buy their slice of strudel?
So it's available by donation only. So you just show up, and some people give us money and some people don't.
Those bastards.
I know. I'm like, you've watched us. We've slaved. It's hot. Give us money.
That's how we feel about this podcast. We've slaved. We've been in a Dutch oven for hours making this podcast.
But no, we'll just we'll pull the Dutch oven out front, and then a line forms, and we give little cups with strudel.
I've tried so hard to not laugh every time one of you said Dutch oven on this podcast.
Yeah.
Fun fact, I did not know what the slang terminology was for that until long after I knew what the real one was. Because my dad has a collection of Dutch ovens.
You're bragging like my dad's really good at Dutch ovens.
So that was his.
My dad knows everything there is about Dutch ovens.
That was
thought you
his
made
midlife
sauerkraut.
crisis. That was his midlife crisis. He just kept buying more and more bigger Dutch ovens. And so my mom would joke that she'd go downstairs and see him in his office on the computer going, "Oh, they're so big, but are they real?"
End of podcast.
JJ Meets World.
That wraps it up for this episode. If you folks would like to donate to help us keep the lights on, maybe help us buy some merchandise that then we can turn around and sell to you for an even higher profit, you can go to patreon.com/JJMeetsWorld. Everything helps. A couple bucks here. Give up a cup of coffee, or maybe say to yourself, you know what? We're going to put off paying our electrical bill so that we can donate to this podcast. Patreon.com/JJMeetsWorld. If you give and your friend gives and then another friend gives, well, we've got 3 people giving at most. So that really helps us a lot, folks. Patreon.com/JJMeetsWorld. Now, you probably want to know where the other episodes of this podcast are. You can go to our website, jjmeetsworld.com, and check out previous episodes, or you can subscribe to us on iTunes, Google Play, YouTube, really wherever you consume the podcast that you love. If you want to find out what my producer, Tucker Lucas, is up to, you can go to www.moonbasemaria.com and see all sorts of great things, including a video of me dressed as a baby. If you want to go to linebenders.com, you can find direct contact info for myself, your host with the most, JJ Gordon. I really wish that we would stop having these burping contests before we start this, because I'm very lightheaded right now, and I was supposed to remember a phone number because my grandma's very sick and I just don't.